July 4th, 2241. The Onyx System. I looked at the screen as the captain in charge of the fleet in orbit called for a meeting. It had been more than 5 minutes since then, and such a long wait was unusual. As I was about to contact the fleet, I received a transmission from the lead ship. Accepting it, my screen showed the face of the amphibian captain, his fins outstretched in terror. Good. He should be terrified. He's talking to me, of course.
Governor?
He stuttered. Captain, I said, with managerial intent. Tell me you vanquished this menace. He'd better have done his job. My reputation, dare I say it, my responsibilities were on the line. I am afraid to report bad news, Governor. I was unable to eliminate the enemy. In addition, I suffered extensive losses and, frankly, Governor, I doubt my battered fleet could stand against a cargo tug. He dared. He dared report failure? This could not stand. I had given him the order to defend this planet, my planet, and he dares to return defeated? You, Captain, are a disgrace to the great Jack's hegemony. We have never known failure, and yet you dared fail to destroy the enemy and failed to defend your people. I revoke your rank of captain, and you better find a replacement that is more competent than you were. Not that I think that will be hard, I say. What sort of idiot is he? He controlled a dozen ships of the line, and the latest hegemony model, with the best shield and laser technologies. I must protest, Governor, the captain said, and I almost thought someone drugged me. He protested me? A governor? The enemy we faced was equal to our number, but they had larger ships with better technology. They used weapons we had never seen before. They could hit us from outside our effective laser range. Frankly, I'm surprised half my ships managed to get away without being destroyed. How could he think I would believe that? No one is equal to the Jack's hegemony. We control 10% of the galaxy, billions of stars and millions of inhabited systems. And yet he says that he fought not an equal, but technologically superior enemy? Do you have any idea what nonsense you are spouting? I demanded, but before I could continue untangling this nonsense, I received an important notification. I will deal with you later, I said, before closing the call with the contemptuous former captain. Opening a new call, I looked at an unfamiliar face. Who are you and what do you want? I asked. Sorry for the interruption, Governor, but we have an incoming merchant ship, he said. And why would you think I care? It's not my job to deal with merchant ships, I replied. Seriously, did I get interrupted for that? I didn't explain clearly. Here, look, he said, as my computer showed a new image. The ship was huge, a kilometer-long beast, and hundreds of meters wide. We have a human ship here. It arrived at the system jump limit 10 days ago and is currently some 10 light years away from the planet. Its captain also requested to speak personally with you, Governor. Ah, a human ship. That explained the size. Seriously, those upstart vassals must be compensating for their status, or the fact they can't build warships. Intimidate attackers with sheer size, but in the end they are just mining or cargo ships. Very big ones, but civilian nonetheless. The fact he wants to speak to me does not give it the rights. They are procedure. He has authority codes from the High Council. My eyes almost popped out of my skull at this. High Council authority? What? How? Put him through, I said. After a few minutes, a new face appeared. The mammal disgusted me with their flat face, pink skin, and fur. There wasn't much of it. Just enough to be repulsive. Ah, I assume you're the governor, yes? It asked. Before I had time to reply, it continued. Well, let's get this done quickly. I'm delivering the defense package your government bought. I just need you to sign it and help plug it into your planetary network. What was it talking about? A defense package? Seeing my confusion, the mammal continued. They didn't tell you? Guess not based on your face. I'm delivering 200 Gen 3 Centurion platforms, equipped with a defensive 1GW, 5-meter diameter mirror operating at 174 nanometers. For offensive weapons, it is equipped with 80 Gen 4 200cm bore anti-ship missiles of various warheads, which include kinetic, EW, nuclear, and Kasaba howitzer. With those come 40 Gen 4 Sauron multispectral observation satellites, and finally 12 Gen 4 automated CC platforms, which are also equipped with the same 1GW defense laser as the Centurion platforms.
What?
Gen 3 Centurion platforms? Anti-ship missiles? What the hell are they talking about? Wait a second. Are you selling weapons? You can't sell weapons and ships. The human government is a vassal, I sputtered. This time the human face changed, and he spoke in an almost computer-like manner. The Human Hegemony Accord of 2087 directly states that the new human vassal government cannot build or own military ships. It does not cover weapon manufacturing, owning, or selling. A military ship is described as a ship manned with trained personnel that is equipped with weapons, and purpose of which is the use of said weapons on other ships, installations, or planets, with the intent to damage, destroy, or kill. The defense platforms are not ships, are unmanned, and therefore not military ships, and thus not illegal. Now, if this answers your questions, can you sign this? After finishing, I receive a new notification. Opening it up, I see a receipt. Then I balk at the numbers. Purchase order. 200 Gen 3 Centurion defense platform. 200E plus 9C. 1 E plus 9 each. 8,000 kinetic kill missiles. 200E plus 9C. 25E plus 6 each. 2,000 EW missiles. 200E plus 9C. 100E plus 6 each. 2,000 10 megaton thermonuclear missiles. 200E plus 9C. 100E plus 6 each. 4,000 1 megaton Kasaba howitzer missiles. 400E plus 9C. 100E plus 6 each. 40 Gen 4 Sauron observation satellites. 200E plus 9C. 5E plus 9 each. 12 Gen 4 command and control platform. 600E plus 9C. 50E plus 9 each. Total price 2E plus 12 credits.
You can't be serious. 2 trillion credits?
I say. It's a huge sum, especially when the products were subpar vassal technology, and considering the legal constraints they were manufactured in, I can't imagine they have had considerable testing. Don't worry, you're not the one paying the bill. Your government already paid, and 2 trillion is pocket change for them. In case you forgot the value of your own ships, those laser ships of the line your empire loves so much are 800 billion apiece. Now, if you would please sign so I can install the network, or would you prefer to wait until enemy ships are glassing your planet? I, unfortunately, could not find fault in the primitive's logic. Quickly signing the documents, I felt a little lightheaded, as I signed a transaction worth 2% of my planet's GDP. As soon as that was done, the call was cut. Finding nothing better to do, I accessed the planetary observation network and looked at the human ship. The ship was a spindly thing, extremely long, with an oversized engine so big some ships could sit in its exhaust bell. Connected to the engine were 2 long plasma radiators, glowing a bright blue. Then came the biggest section, a long skeleton of a ship with hundreds of thousands of cargo containers, and a few spherical fuel tanks some 100 meters in diameter. I watched as hundreds of big yellow boxes were detached from the ship. Then they inexplicably accelerated at huge speeds, with no exhaust plume, into multiple different orbits. It took me a while to understand what happened. Clever use of tractor beams, I said. At least those vassals could think for themselves. After a while, I noticed a new connection on the network, and soon multitudes of new observation satellites were available. The new optical satellites, I presume. Quickly using them, I was amazed by the quality of the images. Before I saw the general shape of the ship, I could now swear I could see welding marks. In less than an hour, the human ship had spit out hundreds of new satellites in wildly different orbits, then made its way out. It was now already moving at a few tens of kilometers per second, its huge fusion drive slowly pushing it to the system jump limit. I would never admit it, but I was surprised by the human efficiency in what would have otherwise been an operation taking a few days. As I was about to call the captain again and continue our conversation, I was alerted by the planetary alarm. The enemy was here, and was already on their way towards my planet, and they would only take some 15 days with their current acceleration before they arrived. The city I reside in would be fine. It had shields that could rival that of battleships, and I had no doubt no harm would befall me before a hegemony fleet could arrive and eliminate this enemy. Only a few minutes later, I received a deluge of information and notification before I eventually got a tab with multiple checkboxes with things like accept surrender, limit damage, disable nuclear ordnance.
What's all this? Just shoot the damn enemy ships, I told myself.
Stupid vassal technology. I clicked yes. Missile 01217 was activated. It was a simple, humble electronic warfare missile out of the 22nd century, obsolete by human standards. After being activated, its simple non-sentient mind was filled with information regarding its objective. It was to suppress enemy sensors and provide targeting aid to the other missiles. It was also shown the flight plan it must use to get an encounter with the enemy fleet, which consisted of 10 ships. Once it had downloaded its mission, it declared itself ready. Above it, a hatch opened, revealing the outside vacuum. Less than 100 milliseconds after the hatch was fully open, it was unceremoniously thrown out of the launch tube at 100 G by a pair of electromagnetic rails. Exposed to the outside world, it connected to the nearest missiles and the rest of the volley. It took a few minutes, but in total, 40 missiles were with it. In perfect sync, their engines ignited, completing their first burn towards a rendezvous with other missiles. After a day, they were joined by 160 other missiles. At the same time, they turned their fusion torches on, flying together on an intercept trajectory. This time they let it on for hours, their speed reaching more than 1,000 kilometers per second. The missiles all turn off to conserve power, only setting up a timer for when they reach the enemy fleet. After days of coasting, the timer reached 0. Quickly powering to full, the missile took in its surroundings. To a human, all they would see would be blackness all around, with the exception of the bright star and a few glowing specks of distant planets. But to the missile, it was filled with innumerable objects, from distant stars to small asteroids, and most importantly, its target. Connecting to its brothers, they proceeded to network their observations and get detailed information on the enemy ships. Quickly sending information throughout the entire missile fleet, each missile conducted micro-adjustments with its RCS. After the fleet crossed an invisible threshold, they all turned on their fusion torch, and this time they wouldn't turn them off. The missile threw everything at the enemy ships, shining powerful radar jammers and creating ghost missiles for the enemy. It dispenses multiple flares, which were a simple capacitor with a laser strapped to it, specially tuned to reproduce their drive signature. Shining its own much more powerful laser, it used the multispectral tool to blind potential enemy infrared and visual sensors. Under this barrage, it took a while before they even began taking fire. Once they did, most particle beam fire went past them, aiming at ghosts in their targeting software. After a while, they began to take out the flare, and then a few missiles started to get slagged. But it was already too late. At a relative velocity of 4,000 kilometers per second and a range of 1,000 kilometers, they only had 250 milliseconds left to eliminate them. First, at 600 kilometers, the Kasaba howitzers detonated. Some 47 spears of relativistic particles slammed into the enemy shields. Most were overloaded, and their armor exploded as beams with the energy of 100 kilotons of TNT slammed into it, but 7 ships remained functional. The survivors were severely blinded for the next few milliseconds, as the immense directed radiation overwhelmed their senses. Those next few milliseconds were precious, as the KKMs performed last-minute corrections. But it didn't last. A few more missiles were taken out from both particle and laser beam fire. Time slowed for the missile, as it deactivated various safeguards and pumped as much power into its processor. It estimated it had 133 milliseconds before it fried its electronics, but it would not survive that long. The first KKMs began to impact. Those whose shields were out had entire sections ripped asunder. A KKM would hit the armor and disappear with a blinding light. Then the armor would seem to bulge outwards before ripping off, revealing an expanding cloud of plasma. On the outer side, huge chunks would be ripped out, a trail of molten metal, gas and plasma following behind. The ones with shields didn't last long. The KKMs were the shield breaker, after all. A single hit was enough to disable the shields of the remaining ships, then the rest would rip into them. When it was time for the nuclear missiles, there were barely any ships left. But the missiles didn't care. The ships, which now had more in common with asteroids, didn't know what hit them. Just before the thermonuclear missiles would hit, they detonated, X-rays sublimating the armor and hulls of the enemy ship, which then turned into a devastating explosion. The shockwave propagated through the ships, literally shaking them to pieces. After a few explosions, all that remained were clouds of debris and gas. But there was a survivor. One ship was somehow in one piece, having managed to only get hit by one nuke and a few KKM. Now came their turn. The remaining 21 EW missiles all burned hard, changing their trajectory and ensuring the ship didn't survive. As the ship's hull approached, it noted the quality of the hulls. Clearly they were well made, but it did note that the ship had very poor point defense capabilities. They had spent double of what it calculated would have been necessary. At least they seemed to be better built that. And those were the last lines of code processed by missile 01217. I watched the replay. One moment is the incoming danger to my planet. The next is a high-speed debris hazard that will exit the system in a month. I couldn't help it, and the foul phrase slipped from my mind. What the actual fuck just happened?